Okay, let's paint a picture. You're talking to someone, maybe it's, someone new at work or someone you just met out somewhere.
Mm,
You're speaking English, it's going okay, you feel, well, reasonably comfortable, and then bam,
yeah.
it just stops.
Yeah, the wall.
The wall. Total silence. You both just like run out of steam at the exact same moment.
Mhm.
And you're scrambling, right? Your brain's going a mile a minute trying to find anything to say.
Anything at all. Just grab onto a topic.
And nothing. Just, the hum of the fridge or something. That really deeply awkward, uncomfortable, quiet. Does that sound painfully familiar to you?
Oh, absolutely. I think everyone knows that feeling, that like pit in your stomach when the conversation just dies and you're left there kind of exposed thinking, what now? What do I say?
Exactly. And it feels even worse, I think, when it's in English. If it's not your first language, the pressure
Yes.
just mounts, doesn't it?
It really does. Your mind goes blank, maybe your confidence takes a hit, and you feel stuck in that silence, not sure how to, restart things or just smoothly move on.
Yeah. Stuck. That's the word. How do you bridge that gap? How do you get past those potential dead ends? And that's what we're diving into today.
Mhm.
We're looking at how to keep conversations flowing, naturally, confidently. We've got some really great source material here, specifically an audio recording that focuses on mastering English conversations.
Right. And our mission really is to unpack the most valuable, the most actionable techniques from that material.
Exactly. We want to give you, the listener, some simple, effective strategies, the stuff highlighted in this recording, to help you avoid those conversational brick walls.
Yeah, the goal isn't about reaching some kind of impossible perfection. It's about feeling more prepared, more comfortable, and ultimately just more connected when you're chatting in English.
Whether that's, for work or study or just everyday life, this deep dive is really tailored for you wherever you use English.
So let's get into it. Before we talk about building those bridges, we kind of need to understand why the conversation collapses in the first place, right?
Mhm.
What are the common pitfalls?
Good point. And the source material is actually really clear on this. It points to a couple of major culprits.
It does, and it singles out what it sees as maybe the biggest mistake people make. And it sounds so simple, but it's asking questions that basically force a dead end.
The ones that just lead to a simple yes or no.
Exactly those. The yes-no question. It seems harmless enough, but oh boy, can it kill a conversation fast.
So common, though. What's the example the source uses?
It gives a really relatable one, asking someone, do you like music?
Okay. Do you like music?
Mm-hmm.
Seems innocent.
It does, but think about the response. What's the most likely answer? It's almost always going to be just, yes. Right? I mean, most people like some kind of music.
Yeah. Yes. Maybe no, but probably yes.
And then what? The conversation just stops, flatlines, you got a one-word answer, and now the pressure is entirely back on you, the asker, to come up with something completely new.
Right. There's no momentum. That yes gives you nothing to build on. It's like you asked a question and hit a brick wall.
Precisely. It shuts down the potential for discussion right there. And that's where that awkward silence often creeps back in because you're suddenly scrambling again.
Okay, so that's the problem. But the source offers a fix, right? A way to ask that same sort of question, but differently.
It does, and it's a subtle but really powerful shift. Instead of, do you like music? It suggests asking, what kind of music do you like?
Ah, okay. What kind? Changing to you to what kind?
And that little change does all the work. It flips it from a closed question, needing only confirmation, to an open-ended one. The other person has to give you more than yes or no. They're prompted to describe, to share information.
So what's the example answer the source gives for that one?
The example response is something like, oh, well, I listen to quite a bit of different stuff, actually, but I really love rock music. Coldplay is probably my favorite band.
Okay, see, that's totally different. Instantly, you've got, what, 3 things to potentially talk about. Different stuff, rock music, and specifically Coldplay.
Exactly. Hooks. Conversational hooks. You've been given material to work with. As the source material points out, the power of these open-ended questions, the ones starting with what, how, why, sometimes where or when, is that they inherently ask for description, explanation, opinion, not just confirmation.
So with the Coldplay answer, you can follow up easily.
Yeah, tons of options. The source suggests things like, oh, Coldplay, yeah, what is it about their music you connect with? Or, cool, have you ever seen them play live?
Mm.
Or even, rock music. Are there other bands you like that have a similar kind of sound?
And each of those questions keeps the ball rolling. It branches out. It's not a dead end anymore.
It's building momentum. The conversation develops depth because the initial question invited it. It's a fundamental difference in approach.
So asking what, how, why, that's key for the question asker. It opens doors. Asking do or is, can, tends to close them.
Got it. That's the first big takeaway from the source on avoiding those conversational standstills. Be mindful of how you frame your questions.
Okay, so that's problem number one. Asking closed, dead-end questions. What's the other side of the coin? The source mentioned another major pitfall.
Yes, the second big issue identified is about your responses when you're the one answering. It's giving answers that are just too short, too minimal.
Ah, right. So even if someone asks you a great open-ended question.
Exactly. If your answer is super brief, you can still kill the conversation just as effectively.
You drop the conversational baton, basically.
Perfectly put. The source uses another good example here. Imagine someone asks you, do you like traveling? Now, that's actually a decent question. Could go somewhere.
Okay, do you like traveling?
But your answer is just yes.
Oh, yeah, FUD.
Right. Total conversation stopper. You might be the world's biggest travel enthusiast. You might have incredible stories from dozens of countries, but answering only yes keeps all of that completely hidden.
You give the other person absolutely nothing to work with. No detail, no feeling, no hint of where to go next. They're stuck again.
The conversation just fizzles out. It's the answering equivalent of asking a yes-no question.
So how does the source suggest you handle that better? What makes for a good conversation-fueling answer?
The key, according to the source, is to add substance. Always add a little something extra. So the suggested better answer to, do you like traveling, is something along the lines of, yes, definitely I love traveling. Actually, last year I went to Thailand and wow, it was just amazing. Have you ever been there? Or maybe somewhere else in Southeast Asia.
Okay, whoa. That's packed with stuff compared to just yes. Let's break that down because the source highlights a few important things happening there.
It does. First, you've got the positive confirmation, yes, definitely I love traveling. Shows enthusiasm, validates the question.
More than just yes.
Then, immediately you add new specific information. Actually, last year I went to Thailand. That's concrete, a place, a time frame.
Right. Thailand last year. Specifics.
And you add your reaction, your feeling about it, and wow, it was just amazing. That conveys enthusiasm and gives the sense of your experience. These details, the place, the time, your positive feeling, are the hooks.
Hooks for the other person to latch on to.
Exactly. But then comes the really crucial part. The step the source emphasizes heavily. You include a follow-up question, often linked to what you just shared. Have you ever been there? Or maybe somewhere else in Southeast Asia.
So you don't just provide info, you actively hand the conversation back.
Precisely. You're turning it back to them. You've shared a piece of your experience. Now you're inviting them to share theirs or react to yours or connect it to their own life. It makes it a two-way street.
And they might say, oh, Thailand, wow, I've always wanted to go. What was the best part? Or, no, I've never been to Thailand, but I did go to Vietnam a few years back, which was incredible too.
Exactly. And boom, the conversation flows. That back and forth, that sharing and asking, that's the engine of a good conversation.
So the core rule from the source, the thing to really practice is, when you answer, always try to add at least one extra bit of detail, or a mini story, or a feeling, and ideally, ask a related question back.
Yes. Don't just answer the question. Contribute to the conversation. Use your answer as a launch pad. Offer something more. Give them something easy to respond to. It's about making it a shared effort.
It really shifts your role from just being interviewed to being an active participant in building the dialogue.
And the source really stresses that getting these two fundamentals right, asking those open questions and giving these fuller, more detailed answers, creates a really solid foundation for keeping conversations alive and avoiding those awkward silences.
Okay, good. So we know the pitfalls, closed questions, short answers. Now let's shift gears to the solutions, the tools. How do we actively build those conversational bridges? What techniques does the source offer?
Right, moving from diagnosis to treatment, so to speak. The material lays out several practical techniques, and the first two are essentially the positive versions of the pitfalls we just discussed, things you need to actively cultivate.
So technique number one, consciously asking better questions. Really focusing on using those what, how, or why words.
Exactly. The source frames this as a deliberate skill to practice. Think about what these words do to the person answering. A what question often makes them recall facts or descriptions. What did you think of the presentation?
Okay, requires describing.
A how question usually prompts an explanation of a process or manner. How did you manage to finish it so quickly?
Explaining a process.
And a why question asks for reasons, motivations, justifications. Why did you choose that particular approach?
Getting into the reasoning.
See? None of those can really be answered properly with just one word. They inherently push the other person towards providing more context, more detail, more explanation, and that automatically gives you more conversational fuel.
So instead of asking, say, was the traffic bad this morning, which could just get a yes, you'd consciously choose to ask, how was the traffic coming in? Or what was the commute like today?
Precisely. You're proactively setting the stage for a more detailed response right from the start. It encourages depth rather than just confirmation.
Okay, makes sense.
Hmm.
And technique 2 is the flip side.
Mm-hmm.
Consciously giving fuller answers. Practicing that rule of adding detail or a question back.
Yes, and the source elaborates on why this works so well as a technique. It's not just about talking more, it's a signal. It shows you're engaged, you're interested in the conversation itself, not just in getting the question over with.
It shows you want to keep talking.
Exactly. When you add that extra detail, like mentioning Thailand, you're offering a specific hook. You're making it easy for the other person to ask a follow-up. And when you ask a question back, you're explicitly inviting their participation. You're saying, your turn.
It turns it from like a Q&A session into a real exchange. A dialogue, not a monologue followed by another monologue.
It's fundamentally collaborative. You're providing material, making it easy and appealing for the other person to continue the conversation. You're sharing the workload of keeping it going.
It's like you're saying, here's my bit, and here's an invitation for your bit.
Perfectly put. It fosters that back and forth rhythm.
Okay, so deliberate open questions, deliberate fuller answers. What's the third technique the source mentions? This one feels a bit different.
This one gets into the texture of spoken English, the sound of it. It's about using filler phrases effectively.
Filler phrases like, and, ugh. I've heard advice saying you should try to eliminate those completely.
That's a really common misunderstanding, and the source tackles it directly. While, yes, maybe too many ums and ahs can make you sound hesitant, the kind of filler phrases the source is talking about here are different. They're not just mistakes or signs of nervousness.
Okay, so what are they then?
They're actually, functional parts of natural speech. Native speakers use them all the time. The source presents them as tools to sound more natural, to buy yourself a tiny moment, to think without leaving a gaping silence, and to make the transitions between your thoughts smoother.
So they're not necessarily bad. They can actually help.
They absolutely can, when used appropriately. Learning to use them can make your English sound much more fluid and, frankly, more native-like.
Interesting. What are some examples the source gives?
Okay, so instead of just a flat yes, the source suggests using things like yeah or definitely.
Yeah, feels much more casual, more conversational,
Yeah.
and definitely adds emphasis.
Exactly. They add a bit of nuance, a natural rhythm, or instead of a blunt no, which can sometimes feel a bit harsh or dismissive.
Right, just no can feel like hitting a wall again.
Yeah. The source suggests softening it, maybe offering an alternative, something like, not really, but I'd love to try it sometime. Or, not exactly, but I see what you mean.
That keeps the door open a bit more. It doesn't just shut down the topic. It signals you're still engaged with the idea.
Precisely. And what about when you genuinely don't know the answer to something, instead of just, I don't know, which can feel a bit abrupt?
What's the alternative?
The source suggests phrases like, that's a good question. I haven't really thought about that much. Or, oh, tricky one. Let me think.
Oh, I like those. And that's a good question. Buy you thinking time, and they compliment the asker a little. And I haven't really thought about it. It's just honest and natural.
It makes your thought process audible and part of the conversation, instead of just silence while you search your brain. Other examples the source mentions are phrases like, well, actually, or, or I mean, or like, or sort of.
How do those function?
Well, actually often introduces a slight correction or unexpected piece of information. It can be used to check for shared understanding or just to connect ideas smoothly. I mean, often clarifies or rephrases a point, like, and sort of can soften statements or describe things more vaguely when precision isn't needed.
So phrases like, well, actually, I was thinking of going later, or it's important because, it affects everyone,
Yep.
or, the main point is, or It was, like, really surprising.
Exactly. As the source analyzes it, these aren't just empty words. They perform real conversational jobs. They create tiny pauses, they signal transitions in thought, they show you're still engaged in formulating, and they make your speech flow much more smoothly. Less robotic, more human.
More like how people actually talk.
That's the key. Integrating some of these naturally can make a huge difference in sounding comfortable and fluent.
Okay, so technique 3 is using those filler phrases strategically. Got it. What's the fourth technique from the source for keeping things moving?
This one tackles the moments when a particular topic is winding down, or maybe you just want to shift gears. It's about making smooth topic changes.
Ah, yeah. Sometimes you just run out of things to say about one topic, and you need to pivot without it feeling awkward or random.
Exactly. You need ways to transition gracefully, and the source provides some really useful phrases for this.
Like what?
Well, one great option is, "That reminds me." You use this to create a link, even if it's a slightly loose one, between what you were just talking about and the new topic you want to bring up.
Okay, that reminds me. So if you were talking about, say, gardening.
You might say, "Oh, speaking of things growing, that reminds me, did you see how much those kids next door have grown lately?" Or the source's example, talking about food. Then, "That reminds me, have you ever been to Japan? Their food is supposed to be amazing."
Right. So the old topic, food, triggers a thought about the new topic, Japan, maybe because of its food, and the phrase signals that connection. It makes the jump feel less abrupt.
It bridges the gap. Another more direct phrase is, "Speaking of that." Or you can be more specific, like, "Speaking of the previous topic."
So if you were just discussing weekend plans.
You could say, "Speaking of weekends, did you hear about that festival happening downtown next month?" It explicitly links back to what was just said. Very smooth.
Yeah, that feels very logical. It acknowledges the flow. What else?
The source also includes, oh, by the way, this one's a bit different. It's often used to introduce something that might not be directly related to the current topic. It's more casual, like something just popped into your head.
So maybe you're talking about work projects and then you remember something unrelated you wanted to ask.
Exactly. You could say, right, so we need to finalize that report. Oh, by the way, did you manage to get tickets for the concert on Saturday?
Okay. It signals a shift, kind of like a little aside, but in a polite conversational way. Useful for bringing up something you just remembered.
It's a very common and handy phrase for introducing a new thread, maybe one you've been waiting for a chance to mention.
So the linguistic toolkit is getting pretty full now. We've got asking open questions, giving fuller answers with details and questions, using filler phrases naturally, and using transition phrases like, "that reminds me," speaking of, and, by the way, to change topics smoothly.
Those are the core linguistic tools the source provides, concrete phrases and structures you can practice using.
But you mentioned earlier it's not just about the words. The source emphasizes culture too, right?
Oh, absolutely. Hugely important. The source makes it really clear that knowing the techniques is only half the battle, especially when communicating in English. You also need to understand the cultural context, the sort of unwritten rules of engagement in many English-speaking countries.
Okay. So what are some of those key cultural elements the source highlights?
Well, the first one it really drums home is the importance, the absolute centrality of small talk.
Ah, small talk. Sometimes feels trivial, but you're saying it's actually crucial.
The source argues it's fundamental. It calls it a huge part of daily interactions. It's not just filler. It serves a really important social function.
Which is what? Why is it so important?
Primarily, the source explains it's about building rapport and making people feel comfortable with each other. It's like a social lubricant. It lets people connect in a low-stakes way, find common ground, gauge moods, before maybe diving into deeper or more task-focused conversation.
Yeah, it happens everywhere, right?
Everywhere. Waiting for a meeting, in the elevator, at the coffee machine, waiting in line, chatting with a cashier, it's constant. It keeps interactions flowing smoothly in those brief encounters.
So what are the go-to topics for small talk? What's considered safe territory, according to the source, particularly thinking about, say, the US or the UK?
The advice is generally to stick to neutral, pretty universal topics. The
Yes.
weather is the absolute classic, right?
Can't go wrong with the weather.
Almost never. Also, things like current popular TV shows or movies, something many people might have seen or heard about. Plans for the weekend, either upcoming or just past. And sometimes sports, if it seems appropriate for the context and the people involved.
And the source gives specific phrases.
Yeah, things like, "Terrible weather we're having, isn't it?" Or, "It's finally warming up, thank goodness." Or, "Did you happen to catch that game last night?" Or, "Seen any good films recently?" Or, got any exciting plans for the weekend? Or how was your weekend? Do anything fun?
Okay, pretty standard stuff. Easy topics most people can chime in on without much difficulty. Keeps it light.
Exactly. Light and easy is the goal. But just as important, maybe even more important, the source gives a very strong warning about topics to definitely avoid in casual small talk.
Ah, the danger zones, what are they?
The big three highlighted are money, religion, and politics.
Money, religion, politics. Got it. Why are these off limits for small talk?
Because they're generally considered too personal, too sensitive, and potentially too controversial for light, friendly, getting-to-know-you chat. The source explains that bringing these up unexpectedly can make people uncomfortable, lead to awkwardness, or even spark disagreements, which completely defeats the purpose of small talk, which is to build comfort and easy connection.
That's such a crucial piece of cultural knowledge. These might be fine topics with close friends or family, but in casual chat with colleagues or acquaintances, best to steer clear if you want things to stay friendly.
Definitely. Small talk is about finding easy common ground, not debating deeply held beliefs or comparing salaries. Save those for different contexts and relationships.
Okay, so mastering the art of light, safe small talk, is cultural skill number one. What's next?
The next cultural element the source emphasizes is the role of storytelling in conversation.
Storytelling, like telling epic sagas.
Haha, no, not usually. More like weaving short, personal anecdotes into the conversation. The source points out that in many Western cultures, like the US, Canada, UK, Australia, people often enjoy sharing brief, personal experiences. Being able to tell a concise, relevant, and maybe slightly interesting or funny story is a really effective way to engage people.
So integrating mini narratives into your answers or contributions.
Exactly. The source actually revisits the "how was your weekend" question to show this in action. Remember the fuller answer technique. Storytelling takes it a step further.
Okay, so instead of just, yes, I love traveling, I went to Thailand last year, how would a storytelling approach sound for the weekend question?
Well, the source gives an example like this. Someone asks, "How was your weekend?" Instead of just "good" or even "good, I went hiking," the storytelling version might be, "Oh, it was actually great. We went hiking up in the hills nearby, and we completely stumbled upon this amazing hidden waterfall. Like, it wasn't even on the map. Took a bit of scrambling to get there, but wow, totally worth it." Then, totally different story. I tried making homemade pizza on Sunday night. Total disaster. Burned the crust completely black. So yeah, a weekend of highs and lows, I guess. How about you? What did you get up to?
Wow, okay, that's much more engaging than just when hiking. Let's break that down like the source does. What makes that effective conversational storytelling?
Several things. First, it's personal and specific. Hiking in the hills nearby. Hidden waterfall. Homemade pizza. Burned the crust black. These concrete details make it vivid. They paint a picture.
Right, you can almost see the waterfall and smell the burning pizza.
Exactly. Second, there's a bit of a narrative of the discovery, the effort scrambling, the contrast with the pizza failure. It uses engaging language, amazing, stunning, total disaster. Third, it shows vulnerability and personality. Admitting the pizza failure with a bit of humor makes you relatable, human. It's not just a highlight reel.
That self-deprecating humor bit is key, isn't it? Makes you seem approachable.
Very much so. And finally, crucially, it ends by tossing the ball back with a question. How about you? What did you get up to? Or you could even ask something related, like, ever had a cooking disaster like that? It explicitly invites the other person to share their own story or react to yours.
And the source argues that this mix, the specific details, the personal touch, the bit of drama or humor, and the invitation to reciprocate is what makes it stick. It gives the other person so much more to respond to than just facts.
Absolutely. They can say, "Oh, wow, a hidden waterfall sounds incredible." Or, "Haha, I'm terrible at making pizza dough." Or, "My weekend was much quieter, thankfully." It transforms the exchange from just information transfer, "I hiked," into a shared moment, a connection.
So being able to comfortably share these little personal stories is another key cultural aspect of keeping conversations lively in many English-speaking contexts.
It really adds color and personality. It makes the conversation more memorable and enjoyable.
Okay, so we have small talk for building initial comfort, storytelling for deeper engagement and sharing.
Yeah.
What's the third major cultural element the source brings up?
This one is about how you listen, or rather, how you show you're listening. The source calls it active listening, and it highlights a potentially significant cultural difference here.
How so? What's the difference?
Well, the source points out that in some cultures, Listening quietly and attentively, without interrupting, is considered the most respectful way to show you're engaged. You wait until the speaker is completely finished.
Right. Silence means concentration and respect.
But in many English-speaking cultures, the source explains that kind of sustained silence from the listener can actually be misinterpreted. It might make the speaker feel like you're bored or you don't understand, or maybe you even disagree but aren't saying so.
Oh, okay. So silence isn't necessarily golden in this context. You need to be more active.
Exactly. You're expected to provide feedback to show the speaker you're following along, processing, and engaged with what they're saying, often while they're still talking.
How do you do that without interrupting rudely? What are the signals?
The source lists several common verbal cues. These are usually short, quick interjections made during slight pauses or even alongside the speaker's words. Things like, yeah, right, okay, gotcha.
A little acknowledgement.
Yes. And also slightly more reactive ones, showing you're registering the content. Oh, really? Wow, no way. That's interesting. That sounds amazing. Oh, right, I see what you mean. Exactly.
So these little sounds and phrases punctuate the conversation.
Precisely. They're like little verbal nods. They signal, I'm with you, keep going, I'm understanding, or I'm reacting to what you're saying. They reassure the speaker and make the interaction feel much more connected and dynamic. It feels less like talking at someone and more like talking with them.
It encourages the speaker, makes them feel heard.
Definitely. And it's not just verbal, is it? The source emphasizes the nonverbal side, too.
Right. Body language.
Hugely important for active listening in these cultures. The source mentions key things like nodding, physically nodding your head to show agreement, understanding, or just that you're following. Maintaining good eye contact, not staring intensely, but regularly meeting the speaker's gaze to show focus and respect. And sometimes, subtly leaning in slightly can also signal increased interest and engagement.
So it's a combination. The little verbal sounds, wow, plus the physical signals, nodding, eye contact, maybe leaning in.
Exactly. Together, they send a strong, clear message. I am actively listening. I am engaged. Please continue. The source even suggests consciously practicing this. Maybe try throwing in an, oh, really, or a, interesting a couple of times in your next English conversation, just to get a feel for it.
It might feel a bit forced at first if it's not your usual style.
It might, but as the source implies, it quickly becomes more natural, and it really does improve the feeling of connection and flow in the conversation for both people involved.
Wow, okay. That's a really comprehensive toolkit we've unpacked. We've looked at the pitfalls, those closed questions, and the super short answers. We've gathered the linguistic tools, asking better, open questions, giving fuller answers with those extra details and follow-up questions, using filler phrases like well or, naturally, and using transition phrases like speaking of or by the way to change topics.
The how-to parts.
And then we layered on those crucial cultural insights, understanding the vital role of small talk, knowing the safe and unsafe topics, appreciating the power of sharing short personal stories, and mastering the art of showing active listening with both verbal cues and body language.
It really covers the whole spectrum, doesn't it? From sentence structure right through to subtle cultural norms.
It does. And the source material, importantly, doesn't just dump all this information on you. It really encourages you to take action, right? To practice.
Absolutely. It suggests starting small. Don't try to overhaul everything overnight. Pick one thing. Maybe for the next few conversations, you consciously focus only on asking what or how questions instead of do your questions.
Or maybe you focus on just adding one extra sentence of detail to every answer you give.
Exactly. Or try using one or two filler phrases like, well, actually, or I mean, where they feel appropriate. Break it down into manageable steps. Practice one thing until it feels more comfortable, then maybe add another.
That makes it feel much less daunting. And running underneath all this practical advice, there's that really important, almost philosophical point the source makes about mistakes.
Yes, this is maybe the most crucial message of all, the reminder. Don't be afraid to make mistakes.
It's so easy to get paralyzed by that fear, isn't it? Especially in another language.
It really is. But the source emphasizes that learning to have flowing conversations requires practice. And practice inevitably means messing up sometimes. You'll have awkward pauses, you'll use the wrong filler phrase, your topic transition might feel clunky. It happens.
To everyone, even native speakers sometimes.
Absolutely. But those moments aren't failures, they're learning opportunities. Every conversation is a chance to experiment with these techniques, see what works for you, and get a little bit smoother next time. The fear of looking silly is a much bigger obstacle than actually making a small mistake.
That's so true. And it leads beautifully into the final, really powerful idea the source leaves us with, the core message that seems to tie everything together.
Ah, yes. The idea that English ultimately is about connection, not perfection.
That's such a freeing concept, isn't it? Connection, not perfection.
It really is.
Is that
Because
right?
it reframes the entire goal. The point of having a conversation isn't to deliver a flawless grammatical performance. It's to connect with another person, to understand them, be understood, share something, build a relationship, or even just have a pleasant moment together.
If you're constantly worried about finding the perfect word or eliminating every single, um, you lose sight of the person you're talking to, you're stuck in your own head.
Exactly. But if your focus is on connecting, using these techniques as tools to help you build that bridge to the other person, then it takes the pressure off. It encourages you to be brave, to try things, to prioritize the interaction itself over achieving some impossible standard of perfection.
It shifts your mindset from, am I getting this right, to,
Yeah.
are we understanding each other? Are we connecting?
And that shift is incredibly empowering. It makes those little stumbles seem less important, just minor bumps on the road to actually communicating and building rapport.
So thinking about all these fantastic tools and insights, the open questions, the fuller answers, the fillers, the transitions, the small talk, the stories, the active listening, it really makes you think about how context must play a role too. The source gives us these great general principles, but how might you, the listener, need to adapt them? How might these techniques change depending on, say, who you're talking to?
That's a really sharp point to end on. It's something for you to really mull over. For
Right.
instance, the way you use small talk, the topics you choose, how long you engage in it, is that going to be exactly the same when you're chatting with your boss versus making conversation with a stranger on a train? Probably not, right?
Or think about active listening cues. Are the little ahas and wows you use going to feel the same or be used as frequently in a very formal business meeting compared to when you're catching up with a good friend over coffee?
And what about storytelling? The kind of personal anecdote you share might differ hugely depending on the relationship and the setting. Or even changing topics using, oh, by the way, might be fine with a colleague, but maybe too informal in certain hierarchical situations.
So the specific setting matters too.
Mhm.
A noisy party versus a quiet library. A job interview versus a casual barbecue.
Precisely. How does the formality of the situation, your relationship with the other person, even the physical environment, subtly influence how you apply these universal techniques for keeping the conversation flowing? It's not just about knowing the tools, is it?
It's about knowing when and how to use each tool most effectively for that specific situation.
Hmm.
That adds a whole other layer of skill, doesn't it?
It really does. It's moving from competence to true conversational artistry, perhaps. Something to definitely keep observing and reflecting on as you put these ideas into practice in your own conversations.
Absolutely. A great final thought to consider. Well, this has been incredibly useful, a real deep dive into keeping those English conversations alive and kicking. Thanks so much for sharing all that.
My pleasure. It's been great discussing these really practical strategies and the cultural side of things, too.
And for everyone listening, we really hope you found this helpful. Our biggest encouragement is try it out.
Yep.
Seriously. Pick one thing from today, just one, and make a conscious effort to use it in your next English conversation.
Maybe it's asking one what question. Maybe it's adding one extra detail to an answer. Maybe it's just trying an uh-huh while someone else is talking. Small steps.
Exactly. Small steps. And always, always remember that core idea. Focus on connection, not perfection. Be brave, practice, and enjoy the process of actually talking with people.
Embrace the practice, embrace the connection. It's a journey.
Couldn't agree more.
Mm.
Until next time, keep talking, keep learning, and keep connecting.